No sound. You're on mute. You're still on mute. There you are.
Our producer didn't take me off mute.
Yeah, well, your producer, you should can the producer.
I think he's done. I think we're going to bring a new one in next week.
Okay.
Right?
And next week we're going back to the future. So welcome everybody to episode 202. But next week we'll be doing a 200 episode thing. So we're going to be going back.
Today is 200B. Dot B.
Yeah,
right.
200.2.
Yes. So it was an interesting discussion this week between our marketing team and us about and the pre-production team about the numbering of our newsletter and our show, right? They get a little off because last week I was trying to take a day off and we didn't do a show, but we did do a newsletter that we were able to get out. So we got a little off. But to your point, right, for those that might not be clear on all of this, is that today is episode 202. It coincides more with our newsletter, but we did do our 200th show the week before last, correct? Think I've got it?
That's right.
But next week, we're bringing kind of a exciting group together. I'll call it almost the who's who, but the problem is, I look at the audience that's coming and man, if you're on LinkedIn following the show or following Tom and I, you'll see it all next week as the emails start to go out, or the posts start to go out. But we've just got a great group of people, and I was thinking a lot about the fact that the group that we got, and real quick, we got I'll call them legendary and infamous together, compliment and not so much in one. Mike Marks. If you don't know Mike, you've not been paying attention to distribution and thought leadership. We've got the incomparable Dirk Beveridge. Had an opportunity to be with Dirk last week in Puerto Rico. We did a closing keynote address for the Primera buying group in the turf and landscape and horticulture business, which was fantastic. Great to share a stage with Dirk, and what a professional and passionate person. So Dirk will be with us, kind of covering the human side and how we work with our people and support our people in the distribution manufacturing business. We've got Dan Schubert. Dan's the Chief Revenue Officer of the National Association of Wholesalers. We've got Alex Jasovsky, I just have been calling him a globalist, but because he doesn't call himself an economist. But I don't know, Tom, every time he's been on the show, and I had dinner with him a few months ago in Cleveland, and everything in my mind points to being an economist with the numbers and the stats that he knows. We've got Steve Levy from Infor, who's an executive there, and been on the show a number of times, and that's going to be a fantastic time to have Steve with us. And who am I missing? There's Tom and there's Kevin, and we've got questions. I was just looking at our questions here. Alex, Dan, Steve, and you and me, and Dirk and Mike, and we are good to go, and that's going to be a blast. So there's going to be, 7 of us with John, our producer, will be on live with us. You and I are going to do something kind of fun. You want to tell our friends about that?
What are we going to do funny?
Fun.
Oh,
well,
fun.
We'll do something. We're going to do something.
We were going to do something funny. I was like, let's not pitch it. Let's just,
If we do something funny, it's probably people are going to get a laugh at our mistakes or hiccups along the way. No, we're going to be together for the
We're going to be
time.
together. And we're going to be in the same place at the same time with one camera, supposedly, shooting us at the same time. And anyway, we're going to learn a lot about our technology, let's just say, getting all that to work.
Yeah. I think it's going to come together. Once we got other people involved and took a lot of that responsibility away from us, I have a much higher level of confidence in all that. So, but it's going to be fun. So 200th episode, Dean,
next week. So it's not out yet. You can't sign up yet, right, for the event?
No, but we're going to push that out on either over the weekend or Monday. But look for that if you're listening in today. We'd love to have large audience on LinkedIn is where that invitation would be, but we have a large audience and growing audience on YouTube as well, and some on Facebook, besides those people listening in. This might be the right one, though, if you're a podcast listener, and which is by far the greatest part of our audience, and folks not listening, would be to jump onto LinkedIn or YouTube and subscribe so you get the alert, because there's just some great thought leaders and that's going to be with us in this event. We've got some really great topics we're going to discuss. I
But I think
guarantee
it's an
you,
opportunity to come live and ask questions to these guys.
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, you've got definitely a bigger brain trust than you normally have on our show. So
it's a fantastic group. I'm grateful for that. I could rattle off 10 other people who have been on the show and participate with us regularly that I would have loved to have had. What I look back at, though, was we had 7 guests when we did the 100th show. We didn't have adult supervision for the 2 of us. We did have John there with us, but sometimes John's John's got a great sense of humor and is a lot of fun. And John, our producer and editor of the show, with us since we started. But we needed more than John. So we've got some front end, I guess I'll call it, adult supervision joining us to keep us on track. So we're gonna have a lot of fun.
right.
Without belaboring this, we talked about it a little bit before, but I was looking at some stats that Dana had the other day, and I think it's like barely 3% of podcasts ever make it to 200 episodes. And I'd like to say we're just getting started, because now the idea of 4 more years of every Friday morning is a little bit of a challenge to me. But the reality of it is there's so much more we can achieve. We've got some fun partnerships we're going to announce soon. Great guests. We've got a really good lineup of people for Q4 and even a broader group for next year. We're going to start doing more and more of our Around the Horn 2.0 shows, which are more traditional podcast style. So I think this is really exciting. I'm just grateful. I'm thankful for you, because this was your idea, when it all came down. I came up with a newsletter idea, which is now, close to 13,000 people getting it. But it was your idea that said, hey, LinkedIn's got this new LinkedIn Live thing. So pretty fun.
The gift that just keeps giving.
Yeah, exactly. But it's done a lot. And before we fully dive in and get rolling on the show, we got to do our little introduction here for just a moment. But the other side of it is, I was at an event last week with a buying group in Puerto Rico, met a handful of people that are regular listeners to the show. First time I've ever been at their event and involved in that market at all. We have some these little flyers that we have out that we always have at the trade shows, and had some of those out, and had quite a few people that were going to become listeners that I met there when we were in Puerto Rico. But then I was on to Chicago and was with our good friends at Affiliated Distributors for their Bearing and Power Transmission Division National Meeting, which was always a good meeting, and just love that. Just such a great staff at AD that puts these things together, and very professional. But I got to just tell you the story. In fact, Tom, I should have sent you the picture, but I was sitting down with 3 gentlemen from an industrial supply and bearing and belting company, and the 3 of them there, and one of them's on his laptop, and gentleman in front of me is the senior guy from the company and the founder, and we're all chatting about what we do at LeadSmart Technologies and about how our enterprise growth platform can help their company. They were pretty excited, but I had a few of these cards on the table, and that gentleman's son, who's probably in his 30s or so, picked one of them up, and he's looking at it, and it's his father that's in the middle. Dad's probably 10, 12 years older than you and I are. And he looks at that and he goes, I listened to that podcast. And the son points at my picture and points at me. And he goes, oh my word. He goes, I've been racking my brain this whole discussion of how I know that voice. And it was the funniest thing in the world. And he pulls out his phone, and on his phone, he goes in and he shows me the podcast that he has saved. And there's ours in the top spot. And then he scrolls over into his email on his phone, and he shows me the folder where he keeps our newsletters that come out every week.
Boy.
I'd never heard of the company before. I've never met these gentlemen. So kind, so gracious. And I had 3 or 4 similar type of discussions of people that listen to the show. So we're doing something here,
It's a good thing we have a new director of marketing, so people know that there's a relationship between LeadSmart and Around the Horn.
Yeah.
Certainly haven't figured it out what we've been doing. So anyway, let's get on. We're not here we're already 15 minutes in, and
yep.
That's one of the things we got to change next time is we got to go faster into
Well, you
the,
know, I don't know that we do, but I don't know that we agree on that. But I will tell you, we just spent time telling people about our 200th show.
That's true. The 200 show is very important. Yeah.
So my story wasn't of any value.
Oh, your story was amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so we're okay with the time we've spent. Why don't you introduce who we are, what we're doing, and why we're here?
Who we are, Around the Horn. We're here to discuss the news of the week, of which we have a lot, in the newsletter that we will be going through. If you don't have the newsletter, you know where you can get it. You can email hello@leadsmarttech.com and you'll get the newsletter. You can also go get it on LinkedIn. It's there as well. We have a website, aroundthehornpod.com. You can get it there. So no shortage of places to get the newsletter. Probably hello is the easiest because it gets taken care of very, very quickly that way. Yeah, along the line there. And yes, we are probably needing to do a better job of explaining that we are sponsored by LeadSmart, which is the company that Kevin and I run and are co-founders of. And they're the ones who help pay for this every week. And we're going to be doing a lot more promotion now that we have a great new director of marketing on the team here.
Pretty excited. You know, Tom, I just hats off to Dana. Thank you for coming to join our organization. I was telling some people at the event I was at this week that it's pretty amazing. In fact, I did it in a LinkedIn post as well. It's pretty amazing when you can find somebody that's just an amazing marketer, super organized, super structured, understands what to do, that has also spent a significant portion of their career in the market that your company serves. So hiring Dana, that's just joined us, that she's worked at places like HD Supply and other large distributors, has that inside big company look and take on marketing, has worked with smaller companies. But what was amazing about it is we know Dana because years ago she worked with one of our customers, and she went on to do some other things, and now she's coming here. But Dana led the implementation of LeadSmart Channel Cloud at one of our customers. So just an amazing opportunity to get a marketing director that's a great marketer, knows the industry and knows our software to start off. So it's going to be an exciting time.
Joined us despite all of that.
And she's still here. Yeah, she's still here. So we're excited about it. She'll be here with us in the office next week. So you want to tell people real quick and finish up what you were doing there? Tell people what LeadSmart actually does?
Well, we'll get into that. But LeadSmart we are an enterprise.
I didn't mean to throw you off.
No, but we're an enterprise growth platform. You're like, well, what the hell does that mean? Basically, it is a next generation platform, pull together a lot of data within your organization. And then how do you then utilize that data to enable your sales team, manage the sales process, grow your sales and marketing actions, collaborate better with your sales and marketing actions. All of those things come together, and all of those you'll be learning a lot more about because we're going to be talking a lot more about those things as we go forward.
Beautifully done.
As always.
Yeah. Well, you're so articulate.
Yes.
You want to talk about the news? Let's do that.
News.
Yeah.
Right.
So which part of the news you want to talk about? We start with the economy and how it's impacting wholesale distribution. The consumer prices rose 0.1% in July as expected, but not as much as some people were worried about. So now we're at that annual rate of 3.4%. You want to chat a little bit about all this and this back and forth that we're getting?
That say, right? So the 0.1%, I think the PPI was 0.2%. So both of them below or at expectations. But what does that mean? That's month over month, right? So that's saying, I assume we were looking at the July data. So compared to June to July, prices only increased 0.1%. What does that say? It means that the higher expense for fuel and all the stuff that was fueling the increase before leveled out, right? So is it fair to say we're leveled out? Maybe. I mean, you never know about this, right? We could end up with a revision, or we could end up with different changes as we go forward, but let's just assume for a second that it has leveled out. So if we do see a reduction in energy prices and fuel prices and so forth, you would actually start to see a drop of that going forward. But even if it weren't, right? Let's just say again, it stays the same and it levels out, then, you know, we've already kind of absorbed, so to speak, the higher prices from energy, which hence the 3.4, but it certainly does not, and I think this is why the market has reacted the way that it has. It certainly does not warrant any sort of further discussion of rate increases. Not that those discussions were warranted before, in my humble opinion, but it's just the same.
Well, I think what you just described there, especially about interest rates, is the Fed listens to the show.
Yeah, I assume. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
I assume they brought that up at their meeting, and they're like, you know, after reviewing some of the intelligent comments that were made on Around the Horn a couple of weeks ago, maybe we should just leave things the same. I would assume that's how the narrative went. So
yeah, something along that line. But you know, what's interesting is both of those number, the consumer number and the producer's number, multiple of those articles, one that we have here and others that I've read and listening early morning, I've been back to trying to do Tai Chi every morning now. So when I was in Puerto Rico with Dirk, he was last week, he does yoga every morning, and we were talking about that. And for a while I had been doing Tai Chi, and now I'm brought some stretching bands and got some Tai Chi going. So, but when I do that, I've got, you know, the smart people are listening to meditation music or something. I have CNBC on or Bloomberg on in the room. But, you know, there was discussion last week about all of this. You know, there was a back and forth last week about some talking about maybe needing an interest rate increase. Others like, no, it's got to stay flat or lower. And then now what we're seeing from all of these articles here as well is they're almost using the term flat. They're not almost, they are using, many people are using the term flat. You know, that 0.1%, 0.2%, those are, you know, insignificant in the bigger picture. The reality is what's going on in the market. I was listening this morning, Tom, on the way into the office, and it was interesting to hear about, there was some discussion about the flatness or softness in the residential housing market. And so the gentleman that was talking about that, and that's obviously a big indicator that's looked at, is that housing market. And he brought up the point, and I just really triggered for me. It was like, okay, so we've got a small group of people talking about an increase, right? Because, you know, we're not moving fast enough to 2%, but we're moving towards 2%. And there's the majority of people are saying stay flat, no change. And if I brought Polymarket up here a minute ago for a look at that. I can tell you what that is real quick, or if you have it, but it's 1% of people think there'll be a 25% basis decrease, 76 no change. Yep. So there you go. And so only 24% there of an increase, and 76% staying
which
flat.
has dropped significantly, by the way,
Yep.
from what it was.
Well, yeah. So there was, but now if you look at this, is you want to push the housing market ahead, the residential housing market ahead, make money easier to get.
Yeah, but the residential housing market or mortgage rates, right, are tied to the 30-year note. So the 30-year note is been roughly around 4.6, between 4.6 and 4.7, which is high. And then
Crazy high.
And then the mortgage rates are tied to that. Now, obviously, the 30-year doesn't directly be impacted by, I mean, the 30-year runs on its own, right? Its own rate based on other things.
It has its own metrics.
Right. So whether they raise rates or don't raise rates, it's going to run on whatever it runs on. But it has dropped a wee bit this week as a result of some of these things, but it's still pretty high, right? Which means that the bond market is still suggesting that we're going to have higher costs, at least over the long term, right? Which is, you know, you can get a 30-year T-bill now, I think, paying almost 5%.
Wow.
Maybe a bit over, right? That's the way it was during the COVID era when we had some of the other inflation there, but still pretty high.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway, yeah, we'll see. I mean, well, if it can stay flat, right, and the job market stays, you know, they don't have big revisions and all that kind of stuff, and you know, then we will. I don't think a cut is out of the question between now and the end of the year if it stays flat. I don't think it's a high probability. I just don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry, say that again. You don't think what's out of the question?
I don't think a cut could be out of the
Interesting.
question if things stay flat and the job numbers stay about with the way they were last week, and last month, and there's not major revisions and all this kind of stuff. And we start to even see some drops in fuel costs and so forth. You could, in fact, argue that a cut could happen this year. Like I said, I wouldn't bet on it, but it's not out of the question.
Yeah. Interesting time. And I think what's going to be really unique for us to start to really be following here as well is the pressure, the political pressure that comes on Warsh as we're coming up into the midterms, right?
Sure.
These in November, there's, these series of elections that are a really, really big deal about where the control of the House and the Senate is. I was listening to somebody this morning again on CNBC talking about one of the traders there, talking about how they're trying to bring their portfolio. Basically, he used the term neutral. They'd been overweighted in equities, and they were trying to get back to neutral because of the instability that they're thinking about for the markets tied to the election. So I'm not a big trader. I let most of my trading be done electronically, probably 85% of it. But you trade consistently. I'm constantly on calls with you where I hear in the background, the market is closing.
Yeah, that's something I just kind of haven't figured out how to turn it off.
But my friend that tells me that if I get an ESPN alert on my phone, it's a distraction from my work day.
No, I agree. It's a distraction. I just haven't figured out how to turn it off.
Anyways, is that from the Apple stock app or?
Yeah, it's some app that's there that's running, and sometimes it does it, and sometimes it
funny.
doesn't. So.
Anyways, are you looking or contemplating any changes in your trading activity? I mean, you oftentimes trade many days a week, if not every day, right?
No, not day trading. No, for sure.
No, and I'm not suggesting day trading, but you are very active in your trading.
I'm not buy and hold. Let's put it that way. So
why can't you just say you trade multiple times a week?
No, I don't trade multiple times a week. I might trade 3 times a month, a few times a month.
I don't know. I think we talk about it multiple times a week.
Well,
all right. Anyways, you're more active in trading.
I'm more active in it, and I don't know that I haven't really thought about it, to be quite honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't thought about the elections and the impact there. What I've been seeing more recently is there's a lot of teeter-totter changes between the quote unquote AI trade,
mm-hmm.
and SpaceX being included in that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the chips and everything like that. And then the traditional SaaS companies,
mm-hmm.
right? And there's been a bit of a teeter-totter, money moving back and forth between them and so forth. But I haven't really thought a lot about the election aspect of things.
Yeah, it's interesting. And maybe it's not going to impact, individual traders to the same way. I guess it depends on where you're weighted. But if I had the type of money I wish I had, I would probably park some of it right now through the beginning of the year.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking it and putting a good chunk in a 5%, T-bill.
I was going to say, when you're talking about 4.3, 4.5, 4.7, right? Very, very safe money.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. It's
I'm a great market timer. If you want to make money, just do the opposite of what I do. Maybe I can post my trades on the show and people can just do the opposite.
I would just think, Tom, if maybe you want to tell people about your Microsoft trade?
Right. I'm bullish too on the White Sox, Will, which is probably not a good thing for the game tonight. So,
yeah,
I'm very bullish on the White Sox. It's great to see them.
He got really one of those Pope. Will says he got one of those Pope hats. I saw that on the news when I was in Chicago this week.
Okay.
They gave away the White Sox games. They gave away Pope hats. So, Pope, P-O-P-E hats. Let me just be clear. Hey, why don't we talk more about the news? Where do you want to jump to next? You want any of these other articles?
No, I think let's get into the supply chain. I think there's a lot of things going on here.
There is. Yep.
So where do you want to start there? Do you want to start with refunds or some other place?
Yeah, why don't we talk briefly about refunds? We've talked so much over the months about tariffs, but I think we should kind of talk a little bit about what's kind of going on with this. We've got talking about 100 billion in tariffs being refunded. A lot going on there with that. That's 100 billion is I guess a good start for what people are looking for.
Well, I think from what I understand is that they've kind of refunded the low-hanging fruit, right? All the stuff that was easy to, that made sense, that they had the right evidence for, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a lot. I remember when we were, in fact, I'm realizing I probably should deserve more than just a couple of tacos for this. Remember, I said that there would be refunds before September. Now we've had 100 billion in refunds in August, right?
Right. You can have a shrimp taco.
Yeah, well, maybe some rice and beans or something with it.
Yeah,
but,
chip. Your second basket of chips for you.
All right, that's good. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I mean, that's a lot of money that's gone out. In fact, they said it's not in this article, I don't believe, but this will actually have impact on corporate earnings for a lot of companies, like meaningful impact on corporate earnings, because they're getting this back, which also, interestingly enough, is
you're flooding $100 billion back into the economy now.
Right.
Which could have a negative impact. I think it would take more than 100 billion, but it is unique in that setting. So the interesting thing is, if we jump to that next article, right?
Yeah.
So there's the discussion about the Department of Justice appealing the Court of International Trade order requiring U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to issue universal tariff refunds to all importers, including non-parties. So now you've got this push-pull about who really gets it. And you've got this whole thing right now about, this article starts to talk about that even, is what we've been saying, I've been pushing on through all of this is, let's even forget about, me, the consumer, wanting some money back from Costco, but our audience, our customers at LeadSmart, and this article talks about that pressure now that's on them because they've got contractors that are saying, hey, you know what? You had a line item for tariff increase. I want those dollars back. And if you're a distributor that did that, and what we've talked about over and over again, because this became clear literally a year ago, April, just as the tariffs were coming out, we had a discussion with, I think it was Sean Dubrovac, the economist that was with us, and I can't remember who else we talked about this with on the show, smarter people than us, that was talking about how important it is about how you are showing how you're charging those.
Sure.
Because if you show them as a specific charge, right? Now we see things all the time, right? We've had to do all kinds because of the shows and events we're doing and some swag that we've sent out to our guests and stuff like that. We've been using FedEx far more than we normally do. And there's a line item right on there that says fuel surcharge because of fuel prices, right? So you can't go ask somebody back for a fuel surcharge cost because once that's been bought and fuel's been bought and paid, it's gone, it's been used. But now if you had a line item in there that ties to specifically to tariffs and you're a distributor and you've got your contractor coming back to them, I doubt too many homeowners are going to come back and ask the contractor, but now you have as a distributor have to go back to that manufacturer and try and push on them. And whether and I know you've said all of this will never happen, and I don't disagree necessarily, but it doesn't change the negative impact that all of this has, right? And that sentiment. I mean, there's literally, I was just having this discussion yesterday with the president of one of our customers. We were talking about customer experience, and he was raving about working with our team and loving that. And he runs a big company. And we were talking about the experience that people have. Well, I just bought the most expensive car I've ever purchased. And that's not that much money in the grand scope of things, but it's most expensive car I've ever had. And my post-sale experience could not be worse. My pre-sale experience was just okay. But now it's a major car brand that, man, I want to go to the airwaves and slam them.
What you're doing?
Well, I didn't say the name.
Oh, well, I think you said the name before on a previous show. So
I did, and that's right. I think it's right behind me through my window there too. Anyways, Rivian, the post-sale experience has just been horrendous, and actually cost me money. And so now you think about, and this, I'm pulling this back around to this article, is that it doesn't matter whether it's reasonable or not, or whether this could play out or not. Like you've talked about, those contractors never going to get that money because it's going to be hard for the the distributor to get it from the manufacturers and the pass-through. But even two sides, assuming we never get it, right? You have tension now with your customer. Nobody wants tension with their customer.
Sure.
And then you have tension between the distributor and the manufacturer because the distributor has to go try and figure it out. Then what do? I don't care if it's probably the smaller you are, the bigger impact it has because you have less people and less resources. Let's just say, 3M, Carrier, Kennametal, whoever it is that's the manufacturer you're working with, they decide, okay, hey, you know what? Tom Burton Distribution, here's your money back that we charged you. Now you have to put all that time and resource into, okay, now we have this money. It's only ethical that we pass that on. Now you've got all that resource. This whole thing is causing all kinds of tension and so forth in the industry, which is why I said, leave the damn things alone and let's just keep them in place so we have less conflict in our business and less concern and more stability and understanding.
Yeah. Well, they didn't leave them alone, that's for sure. But I do think this next article is interesting. I don't know if you were touching on this. Government lawyers said that the Court of International Trade overstepped their ability by ordering the Customs and Border Patrol to issue refunds to all companies that paid tariffs.
So
is it going to reverse again, and then they're going to go back and want the money back?
Yeah. So that's exactly the point. And if we just, and this goes back, and we've had a number of discussions about this, Tom, and I've not spent the time to go really learn and understand the Supreme Court, but had the Supreme Court just left things in place, it would have made most people, if not all people's business easier, because this is going to continue. And it ties back to, and I think this is probably the wisdom with, I guess, Japan, but certainly the European Union as well, that has said, let's just do a trade deal. Right. Yeah. Because what's coming out of this, and it'll be interesting. I mean, the history books will tell us, and, you and I, when we're 70 and sitting on the beach somewhere talking about this, looking back, I think the chaos that all of this has caused has been pretty dramatic, and had it just not been fought, and we could have just found a balance with it. And I'm not saying one party is right or wrong in this, but there's such a polarizing effect between the right and the left side of the aisle in this country now. And then you've got the goal though of the administration, and we always talk about this, right? If we go back to the goals of the administration, taking away immigration and fentanyl and stuff that they've been working on, but the goal has been reshoring manufacturing. Well, let's start with fair trade, reshoring manufacturing where applicable, lowering interest rates to stimulate manufacturing and building and production. I'm not convinced that they won't get there with this. I think we may just end up seeing the interest rates coming down and some level of balanced trade before you see this administration gone. It's just how they've gone about it was a little bit dramatic, but balanced trade, who could argue balanced trade? And how do you get to balanced trade? It's we've never really had it.
Well, I don't know that we're there, but yes, I think there's
we don't have it. No. I'm sorry. I was not suggesting for a second we're there. I think we are. And I guess my point would be we're moving towards that. It feels like to me, but it's just been so painful through this process. I mean, I remember we had Mike Mortensen from ARG Industrial and ARG in Alaska and they were talking about talking maybe quarterly, if I remember what Mike said, with their key suppliers, to having deep conversations about delivery times and cost and things like that every single week. So it's just been a drain, I guess, on folks.
Sure. So, but I think there's a lot of responsible parties. It's not just the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court did their job, right? If from the legal, legal book, from the legal side of things, right? You could argue, was this the right strategy of how to implement tariffs from the beginning?
Agreed. Right? Totally agree. Right?
So there's a lot of look, you can push tariffs aside, whether you like tariffs or don't like tariffs and the benefit or issue with tariffs, but the mechanics of how they've been done and how they've gone about has created a lot of this
Yeah.
commotion, right?
Mhm.
And, supposedly the current tariff structure has more legal durability and
Mhm.
probably will have less commotion. Again, whether you like them or not, you'll have less disruption or less
Totally
disruptive
agree.
forces along the
Mhm.
way. But yes, as
Yep.
far as the current ones, look, it's done. There's going to be continue to be fighting. $100 billion is a lot of money to be fighting for people wanting their chunk of that. I think the only real, and there's no perfect answer to it, on how you handle it as a
Mhm.
company, other than in my opinion, be transparent, right? Saying nothing, doing nothing, making no comments to your customers, not having a position, so to speak.
Those are good
I think,
points.
I
Mhm.
think that's the worst thing, right?
Yep.
All you need to do, I think, is be transparent and say, at this point, we have not received anything. If we do,
Mhm.
we'll cross that bridge, right? People would just want transparency. And to your point, yes, we don't want friction with our customers. The way to remove that friction or to reduce that friction is transparency
Mhm. Right.
and communication, right?
Mhm.
No communication, don't saying anything, hope it just blows over. I'm not sure is the best strategy to at least to reduce
Yep.
friction on that.
Yep. Exactly right. Totally agree.
All
Totally
right.
agree. Good.
What's next?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Um, where are we? August 14th, 2026. August 14th, 2027. What's your prediction for where we sit with tariffs? I'm not
As
asking you
far
to bet. I'm not asking for a
I
bet.
know,
Just
but I mean, as far as what? As far as are we still
what
collecting?
are we collecting them? Is this Section 301 in effect? Do we have just trade agreements in most places and people that don't want to play ball? Is there an agreement with China versus vacillating back and forth with China? Any predictions you want to make? And again, I'm not,
No,
you
no,
know,
I mean, I think,
I owe you tacos and you owe me a steak still.
yeah,
So,
yeah, but, I think, yes, the tariffs will still be in force. Yes, it'll be under Section 301. I think we will see some additional trade deals with some larger countries, but not a whole ton of them. I don't think we will have anything with China that is in writing that is actually there might be rhetoric and, you know, memos of understanding possibly or things like that, but anything that actually has meat, I don't think so. No, not in the year. Maybe not at all.
mhm.
Just it's no, to me it's similar to this whole Iran situation, right? Is, one step forward, two steps back, one step
Sure.
sideways, another step forward, kind of a two-step all the way along. So yeah, I think we'll definitely have tariffs. I think that'll be under 301. Um, we'll probably be having a lot of the same conversation we're having now. People fighting for money still and so forth. So I don't see a lot
Well,
of change.
that was my follow-up question, Tom,
Yeah.
is thoughts on where we'll be with tariff refunds.
Oh, I mean, obviously the refunds will
Think
be there.
you
I
think a
don't.
year later we'll still be arguing over it?
Yeah, to some degree. Yeah, it may not be in the news, but I think, again, it's too much money, right?
Mhm.
And lawyers are right. Lawyers follow the money,
Right.
and there's a lot of money to be followed here. So yeah, those still, and things like this can take years to get settled out where there's
Yep.
legal stuff. So I don't know if it'll be in the news, but it will still be fighting about it.
Yeah. Um, we don't always do this, but right now I'm like 97% fully in alignment with what you said. I think there's going to be more trade deals in place that are meaningful trade deals that are beneficial to both parties. That those are the things that will drive us towards much more balanced trading, and and probably, hopefully, stabilize the supply chain in some issue. I think from that standpoint, I think you're right. The 301 seems to be the one that can stick pretty well. Um, I would suggest that we should be in a place within a year that the refunds from the Supreme Court issue should become moot by then. I would really, really hope to see that because, yes, to your point, it's a lot of money, but this should all be able to be taken care of. But if we can get to a place where we have much more balanced trade, that's just the win-win-win across the board. Yeah, so I would love to. What I would love to see that is interest rates have dropped by a point. This stuff is taken care of. Trade deals are in place, and where we couldn't get trade deals, but we have a lot of our major trading partners outside of China, because I don't know that we'll ever see fair trade with China. You know, that brings up a whole nother geopolitical discussion that we'll wait till, or maybe we'll talk with Alex about next week. But I'm in alignment with you on that. I do think the only disagreement I would have is I think that the Supreme Court ruling will be, at that point, what, 20 months into that ruling by then, 18 months or whatever, they should hopefully have that taken care of. So
well, I think all the refunds and all that will have been taken care of, but the money, the infighting will still be going on, right?
You mean the different layers of where those tariffs were?
I think most of the refunds, frankly, have been done now, right? There may be a bit more, but the majority of them have been, the low-hanging fruit's been handled. So it's going to be the infighting between the different companies and, class action suits against Costco and all these, different things that the lawyers are going to dream up to extract some of that money. It's just the way it'll work. But no, I agree with you. The actual part of it, as far as the government making the refunds, that's mostly done, I think, now.
So if we're at 100 billion, and was it 280?
230, I believe. 230.
Okay. So less than half, right?
Yeah.
If that'll be interesting if that's the only number that goes out. So
I mean, I could see another 50 going out through the process, but then
just
there's
a random 50 billion.
Right. Another 50 or 80 million that just will never go anywhere for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. Let's roll into our manufacturing, distribution, and M&A segment. Our friends at Hardy, we saw some emails back and forth. We're going to be participating in their main event in San Diego in December with the good folks. Hardy, if you're in a different market, is the heating and refrigeration, air conditioning, refrigeration distributors international. I think I got that right. And they're the trade group where in the HVAC market and refrigeration market, really good people to work with. Talbot and his team over there, and love working with them. Speaking at their event as well in December in San Diego. The beauty is, I'm so excited, Tom. The next 4 events that we have this fall, and so I think 4 out of 6 events we're doing are in San Diego.
It's great. They should do that every year.
I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and they said something about, yeah, but you're going to lose the air miles. Like, oh my God, this point in my life is the last thing I need is worrying about more air miles. But yeah, it's fantastic. The AD events are at the brand new Gaylord Hotel in Chula Vista, and then Hardy will be at the Marriott Marquis. But anyways, the reason I bring this up about is they just published a study. Our friend Mark Broham at Distribution Strategy Group wrote a great article about that we published here, about the economic output about that marketplace for HVAC. And $32.9 billion contributed in. It says contribute $17.8 billion in economic value and $8.7 billion in employee compensation. Ton of money that moves through that marketplace. And we have a number of the major distribution companies. You can actually kind of look East Coast, Central, East, Midwest, and West. We have some of the major distribution players in that marketplace as LeadSmart Channel Cloud customers, and starting to migrate in and using our enterprise growth platform tools. So, part of the reason to talk about this, it's just funny. I tell people this in my travels all the time, is that, if you meet somebody that's maybe they're a real estate broker, or own a car dealership, or whatever is, and maybe that's one's a bad example, but people don't recognize the value of distribution, right? I mean, 1/3, according to the NEW, 1/3 of the U.S. GDP goes through wholesale distribution, right? So it's great to see this, and I tend to I've probably had this conversation in the last 3 or 4 years 10 times with people that we've been out with socially, asking what I do. And the simplest example is I tell them, I said, the plate in front of you, the fork in front of you, the lime that's in your gin and tonic all came to this building through a wholesale distributor. And people's heads just kind of go, oh, wow. It's, and then you start talking about all the different categories, right, of people in that business. So it's just cool to see with that contribution that you see within this marketplace. And this is just going to, it's the beauty of, this is just going to continue to see ongoing growth, just like industrial distributors and electrical distributors and plumbing distributors and so forth, as we see the boom in data centers, right? All of that takes a lot. So let's jump to that next article that, Tom, you want to take us away on this. Mike Hockett, been on the show with us many times. Got to get Mike scheduled again. Great friend of the show. He's had me on his show as well at MDM. The KPIs raising the bar for mid-market distributors. Should we chat about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, especially since we're in the growth business, right?
Yes.
They were one of the people they talked to was QXO, right? Which we know QXO is definitely in the growth business as well.
And, they better.
And the way that they're managing from a KPI perspective, are they scaling and growing at the right rate? You would think, the traditional, hey, revenue or gross profit or things along those lines, but they actually have 6 KPIs, which I found pretty interesting. You can walk through here. First one was inventory turns, which I thought about it. We have a couple customers that we're starting to see the measurement of in-stock items and how fast the inventory is turning with in-stock items versus custom stuff where they have to get it, just in time or whatever. That's becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And I hadn't really thought about it, but it makes sense, right? You don't want your inventory just sitting around there. So that was a key KPI. Second was EBITDA per site. I assume the per site must mean per branch or per
branch. Yep.
Yeah. So really looking at the net profit. EBITDA generally is your net profit per site. So is that site being profitable when you take into account not just the gross profit of the items going out the door, but the costs of running the location and so forth? I think that would be quite eye-opening, actually, in a lot of cases. Then there was, order to cash velocity. So how fast are orders turning into cash? We're doing a lot with LeadSmart on helping companies track their AR and their credit limits and how fast that money or the orders are actually. We've seen we should run there's probably some interesting analytics that we could run. I'm seeing sort of just anecdotally from looking at data, times to pay definitely increasing. So ARs, getting larger, timeframes for payment getting larger or longer rather. Well, they're looking at how do we increase that velocity, right? How do we increase that order to cash? On-time delivery is another one.
That was a big one.
Yeah. Digital penetration. I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, that can mean a lot of things, but I assume that means that there's some e-commerce taking place or some digital commerce taking place. And then finally, cost to serve, which is what is the cost to serve that customer, which we're also seeing more of that in terms of, what kind of money are we spending to service that customer? And, even just in terms of how much investment we're making with our people and so forth, and are we getting the return that we need to? So these are things that indirectly or directly can really make a difference predominantly in your gross profit and your profits or your net profit and your overall growth. And I thought they were some things that we've been seeing indirectly that I want to pay more attention to.
Yep. Well, I think those are things as you described it, right, that are really valuable. And we have such a varying group of customers, and it's interesting. This makes me think. I was talking to somebody recently, and you could comment on this better than I could because your team does all of the implementations with our customers. But I continue, to talk to the leadership and our customers on a consistent basis. But I don't think we have one customer out there that has implemented LeadSmart Channel Cloud and any of our other tools, who hasn't refined their processes and their systems in their business. I just remembered one of our very early customers, a large manufacturer. We got on the phone with them as we were getting ready to start implementation, and they had have a VP for their Latin American business and a VP for their US and Canadian business, and we're very close friends. One of the gentlemen has since retired, but very close friends. We worked very closely together for many years, thought they were completely in tune with the sales processes, how they managed their leads, how they did different things within their business. And when we started the implementation, I just will never forget that the gentleman that's here in California, we got through most of the meeting and he's like, guys, we got to hit pause here for a minute, because I just realized through this implementation process that we're doing things differently that has just evolved within our organization. They came back with a whole level of refinement that we then worked with them on and so forth. But I don't think that there's ever a time where people go through an implementation. And I say this because I'm proud of the fact that you and the team and that you're working with on our implementations is helping our customers with best practices that we've learned, right, of what works and how people are tracking and managing. What are they watching? What are the KPIs that they're using? And I don't think we've ever had a customer that doesn't leave with a better understanding. Let me rephrase that, not leave, but finish an implementation and get into maybe halfway through their first year with us that doesn't have a more refined business with systems and processes that they did before.
Agreed. And we're going to another level, right? Because with AI, we're finding that we're having to build skills, quote unquote skills, which are more than just a process. But how are things actually done? How would your, best and brightest salesperson handle that? Or how would what is the best practice overall industry-wise, the best industry salesperson handle that situation? And not just at a process level, but at a situation level, right? So if I walk into an account and I have to re-engage that account because they haven't bought for 6 months, for example, that may require a different skill, where I'm walking into a company that is buying regularly, but I see a white space opportunity that I want to take advantage of. So the whole skill thing is requiring organizations to even take that to another level. And we're definitely seeing that in the results. When you start applying, you kind of have layers, right? You basically can get some basic process in place. But when you layer the skills on top of that and use that with some of the AI capabilities that we've been implementing, it kind of goes to a whole nother level.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Good. So let's hit one more article in this section. Then there's a few articles in our AI section I want to talk about. But the article there, the second to the last one in our supply chain segment, by the way, for those of you that are listening on our recorded podcast, because we're live this morning on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, and Facebook Live. But if you're listening in on the recorded podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever that might be, first, our always request is hit the like button and the subscribe button so we know you're coming back soon. But secondly, with that is you're not seeing the newsletter. And we started our show today, Tom mentioned the newsletter we publish. Again, it's called Around the Horn and Wholesale Distribution and Manufacturing. You can reach out to us anytime if you would like that at hello@leadsmarttech.com. Or you can go to the podcast website, which is www.aroundthehornpod.com, or easily find us on LinkedIn, and we will get that out to you. But Tom, it's the last article we'll discuss in our supply or manufacturing distribution segment is about SRS expands HVAC platform with a low miller deal. So that's easy to just say that, blurb that out real quick, but there's so much behind that. So we were just reviewing those KPIs that Mike Hockett at MDM had done a nice article about that QXO is. So QXO, right, they've got multiple different supply chain businesses in the trucking business and other sides of supply chain. But last year they went through started out very hostile. I don't know how you would say it all ended, but of taking over and buying a Beacon Roofing supply. So now you've got Beacon Roofing underneath that. They're moving. Since then, they bought Kodiak Building Group, which was a PE group that owned a bunch of building material companies, and kind of expanded out a little bit outside of things, but still mostly in that roofing range and construction range and so forth. But now you've got another big face that is doing some similar things with SRS distribution. So last year, around the same time, I think it was, that this Beacon Roofing and QXO deal was being done, is you saw an M&A deal happen where Home Depot, excuse me, bought SRS Distribution, one of the largest roofing distributors in the US. Then, about 4 months or so, there's this big announcement about them buying an HVAC distributor. In fact, it was a large AD member in the Georgia area, but in multiple states, large company. SRS buys Mingledorff's, who's in the HVAC business. That's not roofing business. That's HVAC business. So now you see this, and then boom, this week, Low Miller in Colorado, who I believe is a big carrier dealer, gets acquired now by SRS as well. And the reason I bring this up to talk about it a little bit further is that they now are likely looking at quite a few more of this. And I was talking yesterday with one of our customers who was in this same space. And he made the comment, Tom, that was interesting. And he said, man, it's just, not too long before there's not going to be any independence left in this space. And I remember I was literally at the airport talking to him yesterday, and we were chatting, and I heard his comment about that. And I said, so I got to push back with you a little bit on this, because I think there's going to be plenty more. And the reason I said that is because if you look at things historically, when big company buys small company, big company culture is not a fit for some of the people that helped small company get to the place that they needed to get to be acquired. And it's so common that you see that, there's a few VPs, a few, really good regional managers and so forth that were in that business, that next thing you know is 3 years later, they've put put a group of people together and a little bit of cash together, and they've got a single location open. And next thing they know, they're going through that same build process that the company that they work for that was sold. And so my guess is we're going to continue to see consolidation. What would be interesting, and then maybe we can think about tracking this a little bit in our discussions on the show moving forward, is what comes out of those big acquisitions in small startups that now go to build back into these markets as independent. So I don't see a point in time where we have so much consolidation that there's hardly any independence left, because I think the likelihood is, and I'm sure somebody has the research on this, has written a book, is the likelihood is there's enough independents that are born out of those large acquisitions. Sure. That we see the growth again.
I would agree, and I think there's just demand for the independents, right? There's a place for them that the larger consolidated companies are not going to either fill that need well or efficiently. So there'll always be a need for the independent. And yes, they can spawn out of
spawn is a great word.
Right, out of those things that are there.
Is that from your young days when you used to go fishing with your dad a lot?
Beer? What are you doing?
That's second Diet Coke of the day.
Second of the day, man.
It's been a hard couple weeks. I was gone for 11 nights. I'm old.
You were on the beach drinking gin and tonics. I mean, you were relaxing.
Was there a day that I was gone that you didn't communicate with me?
But that didn't have anything to do with the fact that you weren't on the beach drinking gin and tonics.
There was a couple of days where my laptop was at a lounge chair. I do have a great picture I should have shared, with a spreadsheet open on my laptop on my lap in trunks with a glass of champagne next to me.
Yeah. See, I didn't, that was your idea to open the laptop, not mine. So
maybe it's my fear of you.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
I wake up at night not wanting to let you down.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, thank you.
And my wife was saying, Tom who? Yeah. Tom who? So just to tell your story, I was in Puerto Rico at an event with a booth exhibiting, working to grow our business. And then on Wednesday night of last week, my wife and I flew to the Dominican Republic, and I was planning to take Thursday and Friday off, but she was saying last week that I worked every morning from about 9 to 1 because she was trying to pull me away on the 2 days I was going to take off. At which point, we were on the phone last night with my sister, at which point my wife also reminded me that I did the same thing Saturday. So anyways, it's just because I live in fear of letting you down. So it's a good way to live, right?
I guess so. I guess so. I'm just going to assume you're just responsible executive. That's what I'm going to assume.
I think that's probably more of what's going on.
Yeah.
You want to hit Will's comment there at 9:58. It's related to the newsletter and recorded podcast.
Yeah, he said that if you're only listening, you're going to you're going to miss the show intro chair dancing. So I think you're giving him a motivation, Will, to just do the podcast and do the audio. Yeah, we'll see. All right, there you go.
Yep.
My day is complete.
I don't know that I've ever been associated with chair dancing, but
yeah.
I don't know if there's a connotation to that. I'm not crazy about. You want to jump into our AI updates and tools and news?
Sure.
Let's do that. The time we have left today. You want to talk about what Gartner's seeing out there?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a theme, right, that we've seen here. I mean, we have some stuff about governments here, but
it's interesting. It's almost like you're complimenting the curator of our newsletter. I think I heard that there.
Oh yeah, I mean the curator of the newsletter. I heard he works on vacation and is all the time, and so yeah, it's amazing.
Is that a compliment?
Absolutely,
kind of a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
An acknowledgement, not a compliment. An acknowledgement. Well, maybe both. So,
I'm taking it. I'm writing it down as a compliment. I don't care what you want to call it. All right.
So I guess the theme here is a little bit right, and I'm trying to. There's a lot of rhetoric in the media right now about failures with AI, problems with AI, situations with AI. People hate data centers. They don't want data centers. I think the article here, are people excited about the future of generative AI? Saying only 39% of consumers globally say they're excited about the future of generative AI. I would love to unpack that, and I don't have enough data yet to unpack that, but I'd really like to. Is the sentiment and I believe that the sentiment is correct, that we're getting the thing here. I do believe that there is, unfortunately, a lot of negative sentiment around AI in general, and some of it even in corporations. But I think a lot of it is being created by the media and some of the, hype things that we hear from even some of the big AI companies that are around, the dooms people that are there. And there's just not enough conversation about what is actually working, right? I think you hear a lot about these big, huge mega projects that are, of course, big mega projects are going to have challenges. They always do. It doesn't matter if it's AI or not AI, right? You can go back and look at any sort of mega projects and business and history, and a lot of them have challenges, regardless if they're AI or not. So it's like, I really would love to see more. I look at how AI has changed our business in the last just say in 2026.
Yeah.
It has allowed us to do so much more for our customers, it has enabled our team to be much, much more effective, much, much more providing better value, all of those types of things. Now, is it perfect? And is there always some things that are not quite right? Of course. But there's just, I find it hard to believe, especially even at a personal level, that AI is not helping in most people's lives or in the business side as well. Yep. And I just feel like we're overlooking a lot of that, and we're getting caught up in too much of this rhetoric that and I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I don't know. It's not like AI is going to go away. So what is the
I think
the rock throwing?
Well, I think, too, right? You got reporters that need something to report about, but I'm going to take a little different tack on that. Tack on that, Tom, from that standpoint. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think trying to decide how to say this best. I think there's motivations behind all sides of this, right? I think you've got companies out there and I'm just speaking to distribution and manufacturing, who are not necessarily technologically advanced. And then you have some who are much more than others and have teams and staffs. I think we're in a place right now where we're 3 years into generative AI, basically, or coming up on that, right? Later this year. We've seen this glut of companies come into the market from Silicon Valley that have some value propositions, others don't. I was talking yesterday to Dana, a new marketing director you referenced earlier, about an event that's coming up later this year, and it was related to technology innovations. And she's like, well, have we submitted stuff to make sure that, you know, all of the tools that we've been building and the successes the customers are having, so we can look into that, you know, that award and participating? And I told her no, and she was surprised. And she said, well, we need to do that. And I said, well, no, we don't, because that particular one, it costs $20,000 to be considered of what you do. So we've got all this hype that's going on out there, right? And so much of getting in front of people is pay to play, right, to get promoted. You've got this glut of technology companies, some good, some maybe questionable technology, or have launched where they're not fully baked, but their marketing says that they are. I was literally talking on Tuesday to a sales gentleman with a company who just raised multiple 8 figures within their company on a Series B round. And he was newer to this company, and he left one of those other Silicon Valley big hype companies who's been sponsoring events and doing all kinds of things. You know why he said he left?
What?
The product doesn't work.
Okay, well, that's good.
And he said the hype behind the product does not do what they said it would do. It didn't look like it was going to get there, and there was way too much behind it that he didn't want to tie his career to it anymore. So now this just sounds like me throwing rocks at other companies, right? Maybe sour grapes, somebody could say, because maybe we don't have the money that those guys behind what we're doing. It's not at all the case.
Now frozen.
Because
now he's gone. Oh, you froze and then left. Now you're back.
Sorry. Maybe the universe didn't.
But I was going to say something intelligent while you were gone. Now,
okay.
Well, maybe not so intelligent, but I was going to say something while you were gone. But you know, I to your point about products not working.
Can I finish real quick?
Yeah.
Let me just get to the end of that rhetoric, right? At the end of the day, is you've got all these wholesale distributors and manufacturers, hundreds of thousands of them just in the US, who are getting bombarded with all of this stuff. They know they need to do something to move their business ahead. They're going to lots of events, and then even some of the events and some of the media companies, they're showing some of the results, which is, you know, good for them. That's a small group of companies are getting. And now what we're seeing is the other side of the coin is we've got the hype from the companies of what you can achieve, shows and events. You've got the people that are in the media side of this that are saying, well, we're going to show you all these great things that some small, narrow group of companies are having some success. And then you've got a whole nother group of companies that are thinking, we know we need to do more of this, but we're doing some basic, I think you use the term helper agents sometimes with Claude or ChatGPT in our business, but they don't typically have a strategy and a focus and a direction, guardrails and so forth, which is one of the articles we have here, right? Is from Manufacturing Net about the 5 most common AI governance mistakes people make. We could talk about that for a moment, but I think people are just starting to get their head around it. But what we have is we have 2 sides of it. We have the hey, this is what you should do and try and accomplish. And then we have a bunch of people that these articles you were just talking about are saying, yeah, we tried and we failed and we put budgets and we did this. And we're just so early in this whole game. And my takeaway on this is that this is I don't want to turn this into a LeadSmart plug, but your partner of what you're trying to achieve is almost as important as the product.
Well, it's more important. I talked about this months ago. right? Don't
Well,
evaluate.
that must be important. It must be
Right.
important if you
No,
talked
but do
about
you
it.
remember we talked about this? Is like I said, don't evaluate the product, evaluate the company. Right.
I don't
First.
remember that, but that's a great statement. You should write an article about that.
I did write an article about it, actually. It was a LinkedIn article I wrote. That was where it came
Ah.
from. It was a LinkedIn post.
Why don't we give that to Dana and have her publish that?
Yeah, I'll find that. But
Wait. You published some on LinkedIn?
I
I
did.
don't remember
Like
the
I said, it
last
was a
time you
couple months
posted
ago.
on. I don't remember. I was going to say, I don't remember you posting anything on LinkedIn.
It was quality, not quantity.
Quality? Okay. Gotcha. Good. Keep going. Throw rocks or tell me what
I
your thoughts are on
agree
what I described.
I agree. Look, if you would have told me whatever 5 years ago or 6 years ago when we got started with LeadSmart, how nuanced and frankly difficult the wholesale distribution and manufacturing world can be related to not so much, not the people, but the technological framework, the data, the nuance of the data, the nuance of how business is done, all of those things. I'm not sure I would have taken this on. Right. And I think it's real easy to, especially for a startup, to go, oh, distribution, boy, that looks like a nice green field. Not a lot of stuff there. Oh, it looks pretty simple. They just have some ERP data and boom, we're ready to go. Right.
Yeah.
You start peeling that onion, it's a little bit more complicated and a lot more nuanced than that. So, and there's just a lot of, so I think that's part of, the reason you see maybe some of these startups that are, thinking they're going to come running into the industry. And then you kind of run into a wall when you really start to get a couple of significant,
Right.
projects in place.
And I'm not suggesting that they're all like this. There's some great companies coming out of Europe and Silicon Valley as well. I just think there is that component wherein you have in Silicon Valley, if someone comes up with a good idea, what appears to be a good idea,
Sure.
goes through the Silicon Valley, we call it the hamster wheel, right, of venture capital, and then they have a product, and now they start going looking for a market.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So Tom, with the time we have left today, I think there's another article that we have. It's from Marketing Profs. I think it's in our marketing section, but it talks about, are people excited about the future of generative AI?
That's
And
right there.
yeah, do you have any of those charts by chance?
I think so.
I just thought these might be worth. There you go. Yeah. So you want to take a look at that, and we can. This is a positive sentiment for about generative AI, and the future of it is 45% of men and 34% of women. So we need to have more women on this show. We were mentioned, had one of our soon-to-be new customers mention that recently. So we need to have more women on the show. 45% of men, 34% of women have a positive or are excited about the future of generative AI.
Right. So that's not a lot, really. It's not a lot at all. Again, going back,
surprising, right?
Right. It's surprising. And again, I don't know who the survey was. I don't know if there was bias on the survey. Are you concerned about your job, or who knows, right? I don't know what the undertone is of this.
Well, the reasons are in the next chart.
Okay.
There you go. So 70% said their skepticism in any way was that AI generated content can be used to create fake news or scams.
Okay.
Nearly 70% said AI content may contain incorrect or misleading information. But I mean, that just ties to news in general, right?
Sure.
The days of trusting Walter Cronkite or Jerry Dunphy or whoever it might be in the evenings are long gone. And then basically it goes down the list here of being able to tell whether content was created by a human or an AI. And that's a whole interesting topic. I think it was Jensen Huang from NVIDIA talked about that a while back. And he said, why does it matter if Tom Burton does his research to get all of his statistics by going to the library and opening books and combining all of that into an article? Nobody cared when Tom did that by going to the internet and doing his research on the internet. But now people are concerned that Tom goes and lets AI do his research and in his wisdom pulls all that together, maybe has AI evaluate his writing and then he publishes it. what's the difference between those three scenarios? It's just movement of technology and the tools that we have, as long as Tom's involved. I kind of look at that. Now there's the whole thing of the slop that's out there, right? And I was laughing with Dana yesterday in a conversation about some infographics we were looking at making for some upcoming projects. And I said, man, right now, I said, I would rather use a manually prepared infograph that's done in PowerPoint that looks like it's from 2017 than the infographics I see coming out of Claude and ChatGPT that half the time I don't even look at them right now, because it's just like, oh, nobody worked on that. It's just AI. So anyways, there's all kinds of different things here about use of personal information and so forth. So I'm going to tie these charts and these concerns from people back to your comment is, and we're in the first inning of AI, and I sometimes wonder if we're still in batting practice.
Look, I mean, there's nothing incorrect about these issues that are here, right? These are legitimate issues. I haven't looked at all these charts in general, but is there a counterpoint here about the positives, right, that are here?
Well, not in this article. You should write that.
I think I should. Because let's see, is this the same article? How acceptable we find in the following contexts? I mean, again, it seems like the questions are a bit biased to the negative, right? What is wrong with AI versus what is right with AI? And,
well, the title is, are people excited about the future of generative AI? Right.
But
now this is only 1,000 people in Canada, France, Germany, Singapore, UK, and United States. So not a monster study, but this comes from marketing profs or marketingprofessionals.com.
Okay. Anyway, yes, I mean, like I said, there's nothing here that is incorrect and is certainly a potential situation, but I would like to see this balanced with, things that are on the other side as well. And yes, maybe that is a good article to write.
There you go. Well, I think that ties to the next article in that section. Is that this is from CFO Dive. It talked about 1 in 4 companies delay or cancel AI projects over cost. So this is a little bit questionable too. It says artificial intelligence spending is becoming increasingly difficult for companies to forecast and manage, with unexpected costs forcing some organizations to delay, freeze, or abandon initiatives. I don't think we need to dive into the depth of that, but it does trigger me of a conversation I had this week. I had my salesman hat on, and I was at this event with AD, and I talked to a couple of different companies when we were talking about per seat use costs. And they were, talking about, well, was your pricing going to change, and how does it happen with that? And I said, it's interesting. I said, I think it was at least 2 different people we had this discussion, and then I had it with a new customer the other day as well that's joining us at LeadSmart. Is the industry in wholesale distribution and manufacturing? It took people a long time. Now how many years has it been, Tom, since we were installing software on our individual computers in the company? 10, 15?
15, yeah.
Let's say 15. So there's a whole lot of people in mature markets like we serve, who it took them quite a while to move from, hey, I buy software loaded on my server, or I buy software and loaded on machines, to the SaaS software, the cloud-based computer model. There's been a lot of people that it took them a long time to adjust to that. I'm going to suggest that if the world moves to a use-based costing, those people's head are going to explode. And I talked to a few people about this, and the reality of it is, for companies like ours, as we're using APIs from 2 or 3 or 4 different language models, including all of our own tools, that we're in a position where we are able to hopefully not have to do that too early while other people are trying to get their heads around all of that. Because right now, per user pricing is something people can manage and budget for that. And this article is talking about overruns and so forth, and budgets, and token costs and so forth. And
which is predominantly around coding, right? If you were to look at this, the big use of tokens has been around the AI coding. And a lot of companies have gone crazy with AI coding and burnt a lot of money, right? Meaningful money that, as it said here, I think in the article, ended up at, a board meeting, or ended up at a board discussion, right? That's not really happened in our industry. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it completely hasn't, but that's not a
Yeah.
common theme in our industry. But
Mm-hmm.
in other companies outside of the industry, it has been. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those companies are blowing the whistle, going, okay, wait a minute, what the heck are we doing here? And, you know, is this money even remotely well spent? You can
Yeah.
get into a whole bunch of different conversation about, you know, how you can reduce costs of that through open source and so forth. It's a completely different conversation. But um, I wouldn't be surprised if 1 in 4 companies have blown the whistle on some of the AI coding projects that have gone on and the use of tokens for that. That actually seems low to me, but that's just because it was completely out of control.
Yeah. Well, this was a survey amongst both technology company, financial services, manufacturing, distribution, and retail companies.
Yeah.
So really broad across the board. But I think what we're getting into is even use cases, just even with Claude or OpenAI, right? And buying, you can very quickly run out of. They're not calling it tokens, but credits can very quickly be run out of in those settings, and budgets can change. And so I think it's just another one of these issues that go back to where's the sentiment at is, and again, my point in thinking about this is 2 components. One is we're early in all of this, and 2 is if you just jump in head first, right, and don't have a plan and an understanding in terms of use for your people and help train them on what they're doing and why they're using it and how is it going to benefit them and so forth, you're going to run into struggles across the board. So anyways, we've got a couple of sections left. Anything in particular? There's a good article there about back to our sales and marketing and e-commerce section about the idea of what was I at there? I just lost it for a second. Is the customer experience component as we move down a little bit further into that. There's a good thing about using technology there. And then, Tom, slide into our people and leadership segment. We don't talk about that enough, but there's a really great article that Patty Roush from NEW wrote about tenure capital. And the asset distribution companies don't know they're losing. Big component of what Dirk and I were talking about in our session we did last week for the Primera group. And Dirk was talking about the people side of things. I was talking about technology. We're going to have a lot of discussion in our discussion on our 200th anniversary show about the so-called silver tsunami. And so people, I think, are coming to grips with the idea that, the baby boomers are either gone or very quickly gone. And I call them Ralph or Rhonda within the organization, that people that have been there and have the tenure that are getting ready to retire. And what have we done for knowledge transfer? That ties right back to how are you using the right technology to bring all of that knowledge transfer into.
Well, it goes back to my skills, right? My skills conversation we just talked about.
Yep. So anyways, good. We'll have a good discussion about that next week, is how do we look at that? But Patty's article was really nice.
Okay.
So that was there. So anything else that you want to hit that comes from today, or you want to say our goodbyes?
I haven't read this article yet, but there's on our great read, there is an article that says how we become addicted to busyness.
It was painful. It was painful.
Did you read that article?
I did. And
was it written by you or?
I just hope Darlene doesn't read the newsletter this week.
Okay.
There is a component of some things I could work on that come from that article.
Was there anything that jumped out as a key issue?
No, it's just, there was just, we live in the kind of the rat race world, so to speak, and what we could be doing for ourselves on refining how we look at things, actually, the article, I just pulled it up real quick. It started with somebody saying, "How are you?" and somebody saying busy, right? How often do we always say we're busy? So, anyways, a good article. We could talk about it a little bit, but it talks about people getting comfort in constant motion. And then listen, I don't know why I put it in here, because it just, pointing right at me. It says, one of the topics says, even leisure becomes work. It says the German concept of, let's see if I can get this right, Freizeitstress, describes the stress created when we try to make our free time relentlessly active and productive. Weekends become packed with plans. Holidays become itineraries to complete. Exercise, hobbies, socializing become further measures of achievement. It shows how deeply the busyness habit can take hold. Anyways, I probably should read it over and over again and over and over again. So
we should load that into Claude and have a conversation about it. I mean, I think it's probably some good stuff in there.
it ends with,
well, you know.
What's that?
I said I'm guilty as well.
Yeah, it says 3 questions worth making time for. Who am I? Strip away your job title, responsibilities, and other people's expectation. What remains? What do you value? Who are you becoming through the choices you make each day? Why am I here? What gives your life meaning? Blah, blah, blah. How will I lead? And then it just says choose meaning over emotion. I think that's great. I look at, where I'm sitting right now, what we're trying to achieve at LeadSmart, and things I've committed to accomplish in my personal life. My life is one schedule, right? It's, as I joked about yesterday, and I said, Dana's been so efficient in our first week in our marketing. We've got more people coming to our sales team soon and so forth. Is I would just be easy. My life would be easier if I just, when I get home, I just listen to everything Darlene gives me to do. And when I get to work, just listen to everything Dana gives me to do. And then I think you chimed in that as long as you trump both of them of being able to guide me, everything's okay, right?
Yep.
So I just listened to, Tom and Dana and Darlene. I think Darlene needs to be first, but I should be fine. So anyways, good article where, and it's thanks again to our friend. We put this into I put it into our good read section, but we didn't do anything about people and leadership and so forth, and the human side of things till our buddy Dirk helped us I think he brought it up at our 100th episode. Need to go back and find that clip maybe of why we got that started. So that's a good takeaway. Anyways, Tom, that said, what's up for your weekend?
I'm getting ready for the 200th next week.
You're going to be working on that this weekend?
I'm going to be working on that and some other things for our week next week. We have
when are you coming into town? Monday afternoon?
I'm not 100% sure. Things keep moving around, so
okay, gotcha.
It'll be sometime early next week.
Good. So we've got a handful of new people from they've joined our company recently that are out of the area coming into town, and got some good meetings planned and some good growth planning in place. Maybe a little fun with everybody too. I have a weekend that looks about like the rest of my week has looked. It's just back to back to back to back to back, but some faith-based stuff in there, which is good. So that's my release, some faith-based work and so forth that goes with that. So it'll be fun. Anyways, appreciate everybody being with us. Boy, we're nailing it. 10:30 exactly. I'm Kevin Brown. This is Tom Burton. We get together every week and we talk about the news of the week throughout the U.S. and the global world, the economy, supply chain, manufacturing, distribution, M&A, AI, technology, robotics, people, leadership, all these different topics, and we try and apply them back to how those impact the people that we work with every day in wholesale distribution and manufacturing. Requests from us. If you like what you hear, if you're listening in, subscribe, like, review if you have the opportunity. Apple, Spotify, subscribe, leave a review. YouTube, please subscribe, hit that button so you get the alerts and so forth. And help us grow and get out to more countries. I think last week we were in 8 countries where we had downloads of the podcast, and multiple countries that were listening live on LinkedIn. So we love doing this. But completely lastly is don't forget next Friday, 200th celebration, great audience. Some of us will be even matching.
Get your tickets early.
Yeah. Did you get your fancy shirt, Tom?
No, I think you said you didn't send it to me.
I think it's on your desk. I'll go check. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Great group of people. We're really excited about it. And yeah, watch for the announcement if you're checking in with us on LinkedIn. But regardless, if you're listening on the recorded ones, you'll want to be listening to the recording. But if you can join us live, it's going to be a really fun day. Live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So that's it. Wish everybody a fine, great weekend. Be kind, be safe, and do good things.
Thanks, everyone.